Well, guys, thanks for clicking and welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Review the Right Thing. This is Andrew Wright. Let's talk about some more music. Allison Chesley, aka Helen Money, releases Atomic on March 20th. She's a Chicago-based cellist and composer. She's got a ton of features on guest material from artists like Jarbo to Disturbed to Mono. She's kind of done a little bit of everything. She's got a handful of releases on her own. I'm definitely less familiar with the older stuff. I kind of just discovered her on this release. It was one of those things that Pitchfork had recommended in an email, so I checked it out. Really like this record a lot. More along the lines of like Godspeed and Mono. She definitely has a lot of similarities to music like that. However, it's more of the experimental drone with her cello kind of in there as well. Kind of has a classical kind of feel to it, but more abrasive and kind of electronic. Like I said, more of a drone type of sound to it. It builds a lot. I like it. It's really pretty, but also can be very gloomy at the same time. But it's great. I mean, it's one of those records I don't listen to a lot. I've probably only given it like 2 or 3 listens, but it sits with me. I find myself thinking about it a lot. And so to me, you know, when I'm thinking about that album, you know, and it's not something I can just go and throw on because I definitely have to be in a mood, that tells you something, you know, so this record definitely sits with you. I definitely enjoy it a lot. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. LA-based producer Knxwledge releases 1988 from Stone's Throw Records. He's a producer I definitely have a little bit less knowledge in, no pun intended. I hadn't listened to a lot of his older stuff. I'm more familiar with his material with Anderson .Paak, No Worries. I really enjoy that material a lot. It's great. I love Anderson .Paak's stuff a lot. Pretty much any of his records I would say are all great. So anything with him on it, I'm always kind of, you know, looking forward to hearing. And so I really enjoy the No Worries stuff. So checked this out. And I'm kind of weird with my instrumental hip hop. I really like it. However, sometimes I feel like there's an idea presented that never fleshes itself out completely. And I know that's just because some beats are just maybe a thought, you know, so they might only, that thought might wrap up in a minute, you know, and you might get your whole idea out there. And sometimes I just don't know if it works for me. Might work for other people, for sure. But I really like this record. I think it's pretty good overall. I don't love it. I think it's a little bit above average. Other people might think it's a lot better than that. Influences from jazz to old school hip-hop to R&B. But it's got really great production. He's an awesome producer, showcases a lot of influences, and this was a pretty fun record. Again, one of my normal gripes, I guess, not only with songs being sometimes too short and maybe not fully fleshing themselves out, is I feel like instrumental albums do kind of get towards the longer end. This album sits at 37 minutes, so it's actually really short, but it's 22 songs, and like I said, when you're kind of like jumping between thoughts quickly, in like a minute or a little bit longer, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, it seems like it just kind of jumbles, and so you lose attention really quickly. And so to me, it's hard for me to just sit and throw that on and listen to it. I have to be kind of doing something and just kind of let it play in the background, and then it's enjoyable and I like it. Most beat music isn't something I can just sit and focus on though, because I tend to kind of lose focus, if that makes sense. But this record's still a lot of fun. I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, it's not something I'm going to be putting on regularly or listening to multiple occasions, but throw it on in the background every once in a while. It's a lot of fun, and he's obviously very talented. I like the work he's done with Kendrick Lamar. I like the content he's done with No Worries with Anderson .Paak. So this is definitely worth diving into as well. Half Waife, project from Nandy Rose Plunkett. She was another artist I was really less familiar with until a Pitchfork email that I had received. 6 albums you should check out, those type of things. And again, Pitchfork kind of, you know, can get kind of pretentious to me, so I don't necessarily always trust their reviews. However, I've seen a lot of great things that they've recommended, because they do a lot with, they tend to favor a lot of like obscure R&B, jazz, indie stuff that you might not see, you know, brought up anywhere else. So that's why I still kind of like to listen to their references. So this came up, and she's on the Anti-label, and a lot of the content on the Anti-label I like a lot. You know, you've got Tom Waits, you've got Nico Case, You've got, I didn't even know there were some rappers that were on there now that I can't think of at the moment. But anyways, Anti's a pretty good label. I've come across a lot of great artists on there, so that was already a plus to me that she was on that label. I really enjoy this record, though. She's very soft, kind of electro-pop, synth-pop stuff. It really brings to mind Purity Ring, but her voice kind of reminds me of Florence Welk from Florence and the Machine. So I really like this record a lot, too. Grabbed me pretty much right off the bat, so I've given it a few solid listens, and I would definitely give this album favorable reviews. I like it. It's a 7.5 out of 10. Singer, songwriter, and bassist Stephen Brunner, aka Thundercat, brings us his 4th full-length album, It Is What It Is. And again, no pun intended, but I would say this album is what it is. If you like Thundercat, you're going to really enjoy it. If you're not familiar with his stuff, give it a listen. If you don't like it, I don't think he's doing much different on this album, so if you're not a fan before, this album isn't going to change your opinion on him. But I do feel like this album might showcase a little bit more serious songwriting for him. The first half of this record feels pretty loose, upbeat, some heavy funk. Black Qualls is a very heavy funk song. How Sway is just furious bass licks. But like I said, then the second half of this record, maybe even the second 2/3 of this record, almost seem a little bit more intimate and serious. There's definitely some songs where I feel like lyrically he's playing with a little bit more serious themes. He's not being as funny like he would be in Dragon Ball Durag or some other songs in this album. But he's definitely a little bit more serious, a little bit more tender, and it showcases a little bit different side. Not totally different, like I said, because this is very much a Thundercat record. He kind of, I think, knows what he's going for at this moment, knows what he likes to sound like, and is pretty much putting that out. And like I said, you're either going to like it or you don't, but I highly enjoy this record. I think it's a little bit better than Drunk overall, and I would probably give this record a 7.5 out of 10 as well. Yumi Zouma, an alternative dream pop band from New Zealand, another band that I was not familiar with until I think this came up in a Spotify recommendation. But their new album, Truth or Consequences, honestly grabbed me right off the bat. This is a really awesome record, in my opinion. For as far as being like catchy pop, this is exactly like what I enjoy and go for when it comes to that style of music. And for me, this really appealed to me immediately. Brings to mind Churches, but done with almost more of the calm, tender side of Belle and Sebastian. And her vocals remind me of something, but I haven't been able to put my finger on it yet, but I love it. Like, I just think this record is just so good. It makes me feel hopeful. You know, there's obviously some heartache, some maybe loss in relationships, thoughts of growing older and growing up, but it's delivered with this just optimistic feel, I guess, to it, and it just grabbed me right off the bat. I just love it. And I've spun this record quite a few times now, and I just can't get enough of it. It will definitely make a year-end list for me, and I would give this record a 9 out of 10. I wanted to go back to some stuff that I had done in a video back in February, where I had talked about, you know, the new Agnes Obel, the new Rome Fortune, a couple other things. And I mentioned some stuff at the end of my video that I had not checked out. Most of it at this point I have checked out, so I wanted to give some honorable mentions. And there's also some stuff that has come out since that I wanted to give some not so honorable mentions. The one album is something I really enjoyed off the bat, and then with further listens, I wasn't feeling it, so we're going to talk about those. And the first one being the Black Lips album, Sing in a World That's Falling Apart. I had mentioned before that they were a garage punk band, almost lo-fi. Their later records had kind of sacrificed the lo-fi for a little bit more production value. Still very punk and raw. Very good. I like all their stuff a lot. This album definitely goes for a more twangy kind of Americana approach. But it's a lot of fun. I like this record a lot. There's not a dud song on it. Another album that I would say is probably going to make a year-end list for me, and I would give it an 8 out of 10. The next two I wanted to talk about were the new Tennis, which now I can't think of the name of the album. But oh well, it's not important. You can go back to one of my old videos. And the new Midnight, the Rebirth by Blasphemy, And both these records I just wanted to kind of lump together because, to me, they're not bad records. They're highly enjoyable. But these bands have always been something to me that if you've heard one album, you've heard them all. And sometimes that's really cool. Like, sometimes a band just hits their sound like, you know, the head of a nail, and you just love it right off the bat, and they can release the same album forever, and you would be fine with that. And other albums, other bands are just like, they're good, you like them, but they're not bringing anything that's like necessarily new or welcoming, and so it doesn't grab you immediately. And that's how these guys are. You know, I like their stuff a lot. I think, you know, Tennis, her first album, or their first album, I think it was called Cape Cod, was pretty good, and I definitely liked a couple of the releases afterwards a lot more, and I think they peaked there. And I think this album's not bad. I think it's fine. It's got some really fun, upbeat songs. Lyrically, it's pretty good. So there's not really much to not like, but like I said, it doesn't do much new, and their sound wasn't already something that I was in love with, something that I thought was done overly well, so this one doesn't mean as much to me. It's like I said, if you've heard one, you've kind of heard them all. And Midnight's kind of the same way. You know, he doesn't really change up from album to album. You pretty much know what you're going to get from the get-go. But however, I definitely like the last album, Sweet Death and Ecstasy, a little bit more. I just think the album's a lot more fun. Maybe something about just the songwriting and the riffs in that album that just kind of grabbed me more. And this one's still a lot of fun. I like this record a lot still, but like I said, it's nothing that I need, you know, to listen to over and over again. I could pretty much put on any Midnight record album at any time, and I would get that fix out of it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna listen to Midnight. I could literally just hit play on the Spotify, and it could play whatever, and I would be fine with it. Because it's all gonna be good. Nothing's gonna outshine one or the other. Just all pretty much even keel. And so, like I said, none of their stuff's really like been mind-blowingly great to begin with. So to me, both these records, like I said, since they keep an even keel, I'd probably give them, you know, about a 6.5 out of 10. They don't do anything more. They don't do anything less for me. They pretty much just stay decent. I had mentioned the new K. Michelle in that video and how I really liked her sound a lot when I'd first gotten into it. However, after going back, and I haven't listened to her in years, when I kind of started getting into more pop and kind of exposing myself to more R&B and kind of just trying to put my blinders down for the most part, I had enjoyed her stuff, you know, at the time, but now I realize why I haven't gone back and listened to a whole lot of stuff in a while. Her sound's just a little bit too mainstream poppy for me. Well, not poppy, it's very just mainstream R&B, and it's just not my style per se, I guess, so it doesn't appeal to me as much. I'm sure there's plenty of people that love her stuff, and for that reason, I'm not going to rate this album, because I'm not going to rate something that could be good to somebody else. But this record reminds me of a female R. Kelly, and I don't mind when a song is like sexual or, you know, has that subject matter. I'm not a prude, but these songs are dirty, and it's just not for me. I don't have to have that. I don't need to listen to it. You know, maybe there's a time and a place for it, and I just wasn't feeling it at the time. And last album that I wanted to speak about then, which was what I referenced a little bit ago, about a record that you kind of start liking off at first. It hits you and you're just like, I really enjoy this. This showcases a lot of promise. And then you realize that's just all on the surface. And that was the new Joyner Lucas, Massachusetts rapper Gary Lucas, with his new album ADHD. And to me, this has got some great bars. He's got some great raps, great lyrics on this. I love all the stuff where he talks about his problems with addiction and getting better and trying to help other people around him. But then there's this other theme about his mental disability in his ADHD. And I don't even mind that. That's totally fine. You know, when people talk about their problems, that's obviously what appeals to lyrics. You know, you can relate to that, you know, because not everybody has it just in puppies and rainbows. People have issues, and life sucks sometimes. And like I said, people have problems. So I don't mind hearing about that. In fact, I really like hearing about that. I want to know that, you know, you don't have it as easy as everybody else, you know, because most people don't have it very easy, you know. And I think there's a lot to relate to with that. And people have a lot more in common than they think that they do. But however, with the ADHD thing, it just becomes a little bit too much. It's like he's trying to kind of beat it into my head that I have this problem. And it's already full of skits. It's like 18 tracks long. There's like 5 skits in it. So it already just feels like it's just getting crammed down my throat over and over again. And the really great moments in the record kind of are outshined and then dulled down by all this, oh, poor me, I have ADHD. It's like, I get it. I have issues too. But come on, like, sprinkle it in there. You don't have to have this, like, over emphasis on that issue. You know, rap more about the problems that people have and how you want to help make a difference and whatever. There's plenty of other great things in this record, like I said, that are just made meaningless by the rest of it. So what did you guys think about these albums? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Have you ever listened to an album that you really liked at first and then didn't like the more listens you put into it? Or vice versa? Have you hated an album at first that then you listened to more and more and it kind of grew on you and you ended up really loving it? Let's talk about them in the comments below, and if you like, hit subscribe, hit the bell to notify you every time I put up more content. And this has been another Review the Right Thing. Thanks again, guys, and have a good one. Stay safe.